첫 번째 기조연설은 쉘 막내 보네비크 전 노르웨이 총리께서 먼저 준비를 하고 계십니다. 더 나은 미래를 위한 인재개발, 인간의 존엄성에 주목하라라는 주제로 강연 준비해 주셨습니다. 대담에는 대통령직속 4차 산업혁명위원회 장병규 위원장께서 함께해 주시겠습니다. 두 분을 단상으로 모시겠습니다. 여러분 큰 박수로 환영해 주시기 바랍니다. Could you please come up to the stage?
예, 대통령직속 4차 산업혁명위원회 맡고 있는 장병규입니다. 4차 산업혁명위원회가 최근에 대정부 권고안, 4차 산업혁명과 관련된 대정부 권고안을 발표했습니다. 대정부 권고안이라고 하면 4차 산업혁명이라고 하면 과학기술이라든가 산업경제라든가 그런 영역만 다룰 것처럼 보이는데 실제로는 관련해서 내용을 다루다 보면 결국에 노동제도 문제라든가 교육제도 문제를 다루게 되고 4차 산업혁명의 굉장히 중요한 그 요소 중에 하나가 인재라는 사실을 발견하게 됩니다. 오늘 글로벌 HR 포럼 자체도 인재에 관한 이야기라서 어떻게 보면 오늘 마더레이터를 맡게 돼서 대단히 영광이라고 생각합니다. 더욱 영광이 있어서는 오늘 옆에 전 노르웨이 총리를 맡고 계셨던 셀 막내 보네비크 총리님을 소개시켜드려서 대단히 감사드리고, 총리님 이전에 외교부 장관님 그리고 기독교육부 장관님을 맡으셔서 오늘 교육에 관해서도 말씀을 갖다가 잘 해주실 거라고 생각합니다. 그리고 무엇보다 2006년부터 오슬로 센터 민주주의와 인권 그리고 인간의 존엄 이야기를 갖다가 정착시키기 위한 센터를 맡고 계시고요. 특히 한국 정재계 인사들과도 꾸준히 교류해 주시면서 고인이 되신 김대중 대통령이 계실 때 초청을 받으셔서 남북 이산가족 상봉 행성을 직접 지켜보기도 하셨습니다. 오늘 사전에 제가 연설 원고를 받아봤는데 교육에 관한 구체적인 이야기들도 조금 있지만 무엇보다 저희가 좀 잊고 있었던 인간 존엄에 대한 이야기, 인권에 대한 이야기, 민주주의에 대한 이야기, 그리고 그것이 과연 교육이나 인재와 과연 어떻게 연결되어 있을 것이냐에 대한 평소에 저희가 좀 잊고 있었던 아주 기본적인 이야기들을 해주실 거라고 생각합니다. 오늘 첫 기조연설자로 아주 적임자라고 생각하고 관련해서 아주 기초적인 이야기들을 또 한번 해주실 거라고 생각합니다. 큰 박수로 연설자 모시면 좋겠습니다. 감사합니다.
Your Excellencies, it was a great pleasure to listen to Madam Minister of Education and Deputy Prime Minister who had to leave us, former Secretary General of the UN, Ban Ki-moon. Ladies and gentlemen, it is for me indeed great to be back in Seoul. I have always been fascinated by this country and this city. It is impressive to experience the progress of this society and what big steps forward you have taken in economy and welfare. I have also seen with my own eyes the huge differences between the North and South of Korea with regard to personal freedom and living conditions. I visited both countries in the middle of the 90s. It was like going from one world to another. I don't think the difference is any less now. Unfortunately, it is probably the opposite. The split between the two countries is a tragedy. In fact, you are the same nation and the same people. I do hope that there can be a development for reconciliation, nuclear security, peace, and cooperation with the ultimate goal of a unification. The world is currently facing trends of increased isolation, skepticism, and polarization. Political leaders are setting a new precedent by devaluing democracy and multilateral cooperation, alienating the liberal world order. Despite these trends, it is my core belief that human dignity, human rights, and democracy continues to serve as the best framework for development in the world and in the workplace. For all of us who are engaged in politics, economics, business, or education, in the society as a whole, it is necessary to ask ourselves, what is the purpose of our engagement? Because these engagements do not have a true value on their own. What is the purpose? It is always a danger for us to divide ourselves into groups. Young people, the elders, the handicapped, and so on. Identity politics and groupthink blurs our vision. And we cannot only think in terms of groups. Therefore, my answer is very clear. The purpose of our engagement in any sector has to be to serve every individual. The goal being to make better living conditions for every human being. Ultimately, the focus must be the individual human beings. The basic value for building a sound and sustainable society is undoubtedly human dignity. In the UN Declaration of Human Rights from 1948, human dignity is even mentioned before human rights. That's interesting. This is a clear expression on the fact that human dignity is a foundation for human rights. The same applies to democracy. A significant part of human rights is a right to influence the society where you are living. The right is the core of democracy. Free and fair elections, division of power between legislative, executive, and judicial power, and respect for the fundamental human rights. This is the foundation for a sustainable society. Fortunately, we have over the last 25 or 30 years got many new, more or less democratic states in Europe, in Asia, Africa, and Latin America. The Oslo Center, which I founded back in 2006 and where now I'm serving as executive chair, is engaged in several projects assisting democracies in their efforts to strengthen democratic institutions and processes, such as political parties, parliaments, executive offices, election commissions, and youth participation. The Oslo Center used democracy as the only sustainable system of governance that, over time, can guarantee people's basic rights and at the same time secure the peaceful development of a society. We see a democratic society with strong institutions as conducive to human, social, and economic development and to maintaining peace. Respect for human rights and democratic principles is a consequence of human dignity. This is also the best way to avoid uprising, rebellion, and violent conflicts. Historically, democratic states do not start war against each other. Consequently, respect for human rights and a functioning democracy is, in fact, conflict prevention peace work. The Oslo Center seeks to contribute to responsible leadership by assisting in their efforts for good governance and democracy. Responsible leadership is leadership by example, exercising a commitment to dialogue and political cooperation and promotion of human rights and democratic principles. In our work, we provide comparative knowledge and shared practical experience and create meeting places for strengthening democracy, good governance, conflict prevention, and dialogue. Today, a key part of our work is aligning ourselves in the common project for the world, namely the Global Agenda 2030 and the Sustainable Development Goals, which also former Secretary General Ban Ki-moon was responsible for and working with. We see our work especially aligned with Sustainable Development Goal number 16, promote peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development, provide access to justice for all, and build effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions at all levels. Good governance, both political and economic, is essential for legitimacy. It is essential for making citizens trust politicians and the political system as a whole. A country which is good governed is open towards debates and to the people, free from corruption, and gives people progress in their lives. In essence, democracy is to share power and to respect the will of the people. Listen to the will of people means listening to all citizens, not only the ones who have elected us. Strengthening democratic institutions is essential. There is a clear link between strong democratic institutions and governance capability. Democracy is not just about putting a list in an election ballot box every third or fourth year. It is a continuous and ongoing process. It is about building democratic institutions, developing a democratic culture, and institutionalizing democratic praxis. It is about a continuous public dialogue. It is about a vibrant civil society with good conditions for political participation. And it is about creating institutional safeguards against undemocratic praxis. In my view, good governance implies and relies on responsible leadership, on political leaders' willingness and commitment to develop politics that bridge differences and build social cohesion. This is all about building what we can call shared societies. In many countries, in many contexts, this boils down to relations between majority population and minority groups. Yet experiences underline that inclusion of minorities is a challenge for most communities, indeed also in my part of the world. But it's also a limited test for the quality of any democracy. A democracy isn't functioning without a just legal system and a fair distribution of public services, or a system regulated by checks and balances. But without a certain level of trust between people, between leaders, and between people and their leaders, no democracy can thrive. Hence, good governance is indeed also about executing politics that strengthen relations across ethnic, religious, and cultural boundaries. Under such circumstances, I would argue that dialogue is not only a meaningful tool, it is perhaps the only tool to build better relations between communities and across regions. It's a tool for building of shared societies. If there is no interaction between people, with people on the other side of the river, one worldview is seldom challenged. In dialogue, people can compare notes, share the explanations they have to different events, confront each other with alternative frames of interpretation. This is why dialogue works. Dialogue can turn out to have a real and radical effects because it challenges the very self-image and worldview of the participants. A well-facilitated dialogue can potentially lead to a shift of focus from mutually excluding and non-compatible positions to a formulation of shared societies. It can make the participants realize that they have common interests, such as economic development, qualitative education, safety, and improved job opportunities. Such a shift is a starting point for and a prerequisite for a peaceful coexistence. Knowledge, and consequently education, is a precondition for a lively civil society and for democracy. When I worked as Prime Minister, and earlier as Minister of Foreign Affairs, I always was very clear in the priorities for Norway's international development assistance. And I think Ban Ki-moon is aware of that. Health and education are the basic needs for all people. And we have to give these areas priority in our assistance. Without health, we can't contribute to the society around us. And without education, it is very limited what we can do. There has been substantial progress in both development fields. Some of the main UN development goals were about health and education. And much has been achieved. With regard to education, a number of children who do not get any education at all has been greatly reduced from around 100 million to less than 50 million. That's real progress. But still we have a long way to go. In the new Sustainable Development Goals from 2030, health and education are still essential. This is crucial to minimizing inequality and promoting growth in our societies and in business. In education, girls are still lagging behind. It is therefore of utmost importance, both for equality and for democracy, to increase the efforts to reach out to more girls in order to offer them basic as well as advanced education. Disabled children are also a marginalized group, receiving less education than others. To move forward equality, it is crucial to meet their learning needs and adjust learning material to their needs. This is a key to their inclusion in business and in workplace as well. And children in conflict-ridden regions meet, of obvious reasons, bigger hindrances than others to get education. Peace is consequently important for education and for democracy. Both education, practical experience, and human knowledge is important to meet challenges in specific fields. Therefore, it is not enough to only use academic background as a main criteria. I have, through many years in politics, learned that people without much education can do much if they have experience and human wisdom. But education is always an advantage if it can be combined with other important skills. The nations have the main responsibility to give all citizens basic education as a platform to go further in education or jobs. The international community, especially through UN programs like Education Cannot Wait and International Fund for Education and Development, can give substantial contributions. Education organizations can give support for building out the best possible education system at all levels and all relevant directions. And companies, business companies, should give inputs in the debate on what we need of educated workers. Education is a key for democracy, for inclusiveness and equal starting points and competition. Some words about inclusion. Citizen inclusion also stands as crucial to a sustainable society in the workplace, in educational institutions and local communities. It includes efforts that ensure the needs of diverse people are met and that positive actions are taken to create environments where people believe they are respected and can realize their full potentials as citizens. To ensure citizens' inclusion, states have to empower holistic citizens. Our societies must reflect the population as a whole in order to achieve sustainable development, communities, and success. In Norway, the way that working life is organized ensures true inclusion by enabling what we call a three-party cooperation. This means that the three parties include the organizations of the employers and of the employees and of government institutions. All parties are included in regards to development and improvement of income and salary policies, labor right policies, and so forth. Such structures contribute to citizen inclusion and political inclusion. In addition to ensuring political inclusion, citizens must also be ensured the ability to practice an active social life, sparing time for sports, culture, and religious activities. Some few words about modern technology. A special challenge within education is to prepare students for how to manage the new social media and modern communication technology. Access to modern technology also minimizes inequality, and it is important that schools are provided with the tools and learning to ensure that students follow the rapid development of digital skills. Today, there is also a risk of establishing new differences between those who manage to take the new technology in good use for education and positive development, and those who see this as a new barrier for taking part in the development. It is consequently a heavy responsibility for our education system to avoid this inequality and obstacle for growth. Equal access for all to utilize this new technological equipment and a common basic education for how to use them must be ensured through education initiatives. There is no doubt that when used in a good way, social media can give us new opportunities for spreading information, for two-way communication, and ultimately for strengthening democracy. But we also experience today that social media is used for harassment and threats. Even in Norway, local politicians have withdrawn from politics because of this. They don't afford it. Additionally, The new technologies allow for digital disinformation and fake news to flourish, challenges decency and fair and quality discourse. These challenges pose a severe threat to democracy and people's trust in democratic institutions. We must not take our institutions for granted, especially the free and independent press. We must continue to counter disinformation, as it poses a great threat to elections, political processes and businesses, and to work to restore the trust of the individuals who make up our different societies. To conclude, finally, it is my inherent belief that human dignity remains as a basic value for all development, and that human rights is a foundation for a sustainable society. This is crucial to all aspects of society, in all industries and communities. Human dignity must be present as a most basic value in any organization or community, ensuring that the well-being of individuals remain the core of any mission. Education must be recognized and utilized as the most useful tool for the advancement and empowerment of individuals. Good governance in business and political institutions create a society built on trust that ensures the protection of fundamental human rights. Democratic values put the individual at the core and ensures equal opportunities. And modern technology can be utilized to equalize the playing field for students, employers, and employees, minimizing inequality by democratizing the flow and access to information. All these aspects are pivotal in our efforts to ensure a better future for the world and support our efforts in reaching the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. Ultimately, it is my belief that true focus and prioritization of human dignity will ensure the success of individuals, groups, societies, and the global community. Despite the state of discourse, the threat of fake news and disinformation, I hope we will remain focused on what matters: improved living conditions and empowerment of the individual. Thank you for inviting me here today. I'm grateful that we get to exchange our views on how we can, together, create a better future for all of us. Thank you.
네, 안내해드린 모바일 화면 질문을 올려주시면 화면에 질문을 갖다가 올려주시면 될 것 같고요. 강연자께서 해주신 것들이 인간 존엄성, 인권, 민주주의, 리더십, 사회적 합의 포용, 교육까지 이 어떻게 보면 우리 사회를 구성하는 굉장히 기초적인 이야기들을 모두 다 한 번씩 이렇게 기초적 관점에서 훑어주셨기 때문에 질문을 오히려 하시기가 조금 더 용이하지는 않으실 수는 있는 것 같아요. 좀 어려울 수 있지 않을까, 너무 기초적인 이야기이기 때문에 라는 생각이 들지만 이런 어떤 큰 행사의 시작으로서 늘 기초를 갖다 한 번씩 돌아보는 건 중요하니까요. 그런 관점으로 생각해 주시면 될 것 같고, 모바일 화면에 질문을 올려주시면 관련해서 제가 한번 보고 내용을 갖다 선택을 갖다 좀 하는 것으로 그렇게 하겠습니다. 질문을 제가 보니까 네, 사실 첫 질문부터 너무 어려운 복잡한 힘든 질문 드리면은 좀 처음부터 괴로우시니까요. 예, 한국 사람들이 자주 하는, 하지만 평소에는 좀 하지 말아야 될 것 같은 질문이지만 분위기를 좀 이렇게 띄운다는 측면에서 많이 하는 볼까요? 보겠습니다, 제가. 네, 한국 이미지 질문하는 거 많이 질문하는데 사실 외국에서 오신 분께 이런 질문하면 약간 신뢰가 되기도 하는데요. 그래도 많이 편하게 하는 질문이니까, 그리고 뭐 정답이 있는 질문은 아니니까 관련해서 좀 편하게 해주시면 될 것 같습니다. 제가 질문을 읽겠습니다. 아마 트랜슬레이션 되고 있을 거니까요. 노르웨이는 경제 강소국이자 복지 강국으로 널리 알려져 있습니다. 한국 사람들이 북유럽에 대한 굉장히 선망이라든가 선호가 분명히 있는 건 사실인 것 같습니다. 노르웨이에서 한국의 이미지는 어떤가요? 라는 아주 캐주얼한 질문입니다. 그냥 캐주얼하게 답변을 갖다 해주시면 어떨까 싶습니다. 네.
I think the main impression in Norway about Korea is that South Korea is a very advanced society, and that you have a very quick economic and social development over rather few years. At the same time, when we talk about Korea and Norway, we also think about the tragic division between North and South. And we know that South Korea has a special challenge, how to approach the North of Korea, and how to find a way to have a dialogue with them and hopefully change the situation. At the same time, safeguarding human rights and democracy. So many of us, we really admire South Korea for what you have done. We are impressed. We see that it is absolutely possible to have a quick economic and social development in this part of the world. And I think in that regard, you are an example for other countries in this region. I have had the pleasure of being in this country several times. I've received honorary doctorates here, and I met my good friend, late President Kim Dae-jung, several times, and I've been to his library after his death, and it's always a great experience to be here again as today. So thank you for inviting me.
네. 자, 캐주얼하게 몸을 풀었으니까 좀 굉장히 어려운 질문 바로 또 가겠습니다. 그 교육에 대한 이야기 아무래도 할 수밖에 없는 것 같은데 최근 어떻게 보면은 이 질문으로 한번 가보면 좋을 것 같습니다. 그 소득 격차와 교육에 대한 이야기입니다. 질문 내용이 이렇습니다. 갈수록 소득 격차가 심화되는 상황에서 미래 인재 교육은 어떤 방향성을 잃지 말아야 할까요? 제가 조금만 보강 설명을 해드리면 개발 초기, 나라의 개발 초기에는 교육이 소득을 갖다가 정대시키고 복지를 정대시키고 하는 것에 도움이 되는 건 사실이지만 사실 한국이 지금 겪고 있는 굉장히 큰 문제는 경쟁적 입시 체계, 사교육으로 대표되는 소득에 따른 교육 격차, 즉 교육이 너무 많이 되고 이것이 어떻게 보면은 개개인의 경제 수준에 좌우됨으로써 교육이 서열을 되물림한다 라는 어떤 비판적 시각이 큰 것이 사실입니다. 그런 맥락에서 소득 격차와 교육 문제에 대한 이야기, 특히 노르웨이 케이스가 좀 있다면 편하게 한번 얘기를 해주시면 어떨까 싶습니다.
I think all countries, also the most advanced ones, have been through this process of inequality with regard to access to education, that people from more poor parts of the population don't have the same possibility. And it was also so in Norway only some years ago. I remember my parents' generation. It was not equal access for all for more than the compulsory education, because it was expensive and students from more poor family did not have the possibility. And there were many talented people in Norway who didn't get the education they deserved. But this has gradually changed, I will say. So today I think it's fair to say that inequality in access to education is not a big problem in Norway any longer. Also, students from more lower income groups have now a real chance to go further to colleges and universities after the compulsory school. And this is because it's not that expensive in Norway to go to universities. They have to pay a fee, yes, but not that high. And the other side of it is that we have a rather good system for a student. We have a student aid fund that is offering all students economic support. And if you fulfill your student career and graduate, you also have a system that's part of this loan you have taken will be paid back. So by these ways, I think today, well, still, of course, there is some inequality, but it's not a big problem any longer in Norway. And I hope you will reach the same level here in Korea.
예, 어떻게 보면 10년 전에도 불평등이 여전히 있었지만 재정 문제, 학생 보조금 같은 이야기도 해주시고 어떻게 보면 전체적으로 같이 노력해서 지금은 불평등이 완화되고 있다 교육에서 이런 말씀을 좀 해주신 것 같습니다. 그 두 가지 또 비슷한 질문 한번 또 할까요? 소득 격차 이런 질문이 굉장히 많이 나오기 때문에 최근에 어떻게 보면은 한국 사회가 겪는 굉장히 큰 갈등들이 이런 것에 연유하기 때문에 이런 질문들이 많이 나오는 것 같습니다. 질문을 좀 드리면 오블리스 노블리제 관련된 이야기인 것 같습니다. 포용적 사회 분위기를 형성하려면 현재 사회에서 기득권을 가진 계층에서 먼저 변화가 생겨야 한다고 생각합니다. 오블리스 노블리제 관련된 이야기인 것 같고요. 이미 충분한 교육을 받았고 쉽게 변하지 않으려는 그들을 변화시키기 위한 어떤 방안이 있을까요? 즉, 뭐 노르웨이 같은 경우라든가 아니면 오블리스 노블리제가 단순히 선언적 의미가 아니라 실천적으로 실행이 되기 위한 어떤 좋은 방안들이 있는지에 대한 질문들을 해주신 것 같습니다. 좀 어려운 질문이기도 한데 또 청해 듣도록 하겠습니다. 네.
Yeah, it's a tricky question, as you indicate.
네.
But let me mention a couple of dimensions how we can contribute to reduce the inequality. First of all, in Norway we are used to have rather strong trade unions. And when I was Prime Minister and also in other political positions, I remember very well the leaders of the trade unions. They came to my office, they had their demands, they were strong. And when they had the annual negotiations between the employers' organizations and the employees, they also sometimes involved the government as the third part, as I mentioned in my speech. And they, maybe both of them asked for some help from the government. For instance, because they couldn't reduce the gap of incomes as they wanted, they asked the government to help by using the taxation system, for instance, at the same time as you had these negotiations of incomes. And that's why we call it the third-party cooperation. And so strong trade unions, I think, is one answer. Another answer is that we have in Norway, I will say, a rather broad consensus to avoid big gaps in income. Of course, there are some differences between different political parties, but in general, there is a broad consensus that we should avoid big gaps. And we use taxation and other political means to reduce the gap. And I think in a way we have succeeded in, some talk about the Scandinavian welfare model. And this is a part of the Scandinavian welfare model. Another part of it is, of course, that we have a very strong social security net that will help people who are without jobs And another part of it is a very lively civil society. Many and strong non-governmental organizations working in the civil society, also for the interests of different people. For instance, you have organizations for the handicapped people, and now we have very active non-governmental organizations working for the climate issue and for environment and so on. There are different interests that are organized through different NGOs, and that is also a part of our, let me say, welfare system.
어떻게 보면 소득 격차가 좀 줄어야 된다는 사회적 합의, 그리고 노조라든가 아니면 시민단체와 같이 기득권과 세력을 균형을 맞출 수 있는 단체에 대한 힘, 이런 것들에 대한 이야기를 좀 해주신 것 같습니다. 제가 마더레이트를 처음 해보는데요, 이렇게 모바일로 올라온 질문을 보면서 들으면서 영어 한국어가 왔다 갔다 그러니까 저도 너무 힘듭니다. 들으시는 분들도 아마 굉장히 힘드실 것 같은데요. 네. 그래서 중간에 그냥 좀 편한 질문 하나만 드릴까요? 그냥 개인적인 질문인 것 같습니다. 뭐냐면 질문 선택. 네. 개인적인 질문입니다. 총리직 이후에도 오슬로 평화 인권센터를 설립해서 국제 인권 운동을 하고 계신데 굉장히 많은 이슈 중에 인간 존엄성과 인권에 특별히 관심을 가지게 된 계기가 있으신가요? 좀 어떻게 보면 개인적인 질문인 것 같습니다.
Well, I think there are two main reasons for this engagement. First, my own background. My family. My father was a local politician, and he was very much engaged in social issues in the local community. He was really looking for people in need, and also as an active member of a Christian church. And this congregation was active, helping poor people. And this gave me an impression I will never forget. And I think it has influenced my whole life. I also remember that missionaries from Norway, who were missionaries in Africa, they came back to our local community and to our churches and told us about the situation in different African countries and the poverty and the abuse of human rights, lack of democracy, and so on. And this really engaged me. I wanted to stand up and fight for their rights. And so after many years in politics, I was elected to parliament for 32 years, believe me or not, 32 years. But 10 of them I was in 4 different coalition governments, and for 2 of them as prime minister. I was more and more engaged in international politics. So when I stepped down as prime minister back in 2005, I was wondering what should I now do. I had never asked for a job. I had always been elected for a political position. So my wife and I, we decided that we want to have our home in Norway because of many children and grandchildren. We decided to do that, but I wanted to work also internationally and combine these 2 things. And therefore, instead of going into diplomacy, which I was offered, or go into a big organization and sitting there to have the responsibility for many, many employees, I decided to make a small center, the Oslo Center, together with a colleague of mine, to work for people who are in need. And we have been engaged in, for instance, in interreligious dialogues. That has been very interesting. We have been engaged in some specific human rights projects. But over the last years, we have prioritized more and more to work on what we call democracy assistance projects. And that means that in countries where democracy is growing and gaining ground, but where they don't have so much democratic culture and background, we try to contribute to develop and stabilize democratic political institutions. That means parliaments, governments, political parties, share our experience on how to do that. For the time being, we are in Kenya, we are in Ukraine, we are on Sri Lanka, we have been in other countries before, like Sudan, Somalia, the Kyrgyz Republic, and so on. And this is really a meaningful engagement for me, despite I'm a pensionist, but I'm still engaged.
네. 좀 교육에 대한 질문으로 조금 더 한번 돌아가도록 하겠습니다. 아무래도 최근 4차 산업혁명 그리고 인공지능 이야기가 많이 나오니까요. 그런 시대에 과연 미래 인재, 미래 핵심 역량을 어떻게 해야 되느냐라는 고민이 많은 것 같습니다. 오늘 그 스피치와 직접적 연관은 없지만 그래도 이런 질문 한번 드리면 좋을 것 같습니다. 인공지능으로 대표되는 시대에 미래를 위한 인적 자원을 발전시키는 다양한 교육 방법들이 있을 텐데 우선되어야 하는 것 한 가지만 좀 제안해 주시면 어떨까요? 라는 질문입니다. 네, 스피치와 직접적인 연관은 없지만 한번 들어보면 좋을 것 같습니다. 네. 이제는 인공지능에 대한 일반적인 이야기를 그냥 해주셔도 될 것 같습니다. 예. AI. Artificial intelligence, yes.
Well, I'm not an expert on that, but so I have to be careful on that to comment. But what I will say is that this fourth revolution and the modern technology that I touched upon, and especially the social media, gives us a heavy, I will say, moral responsibility. Because now in our hands we have all opportunities with our iPhones and iPads and Twitter and Facebook and IMO and what it is called, everything. All these platforms, they can be used for good purposes, but they can be misused as well. And it's impossible to stop misuse by censorship or other regulations. It's obvious. We cannot do that. So it's up to the moral standard in every human being that these equipments are used for the good and not for the bad. So I think that emphasizing ethical values now, moral responsibility for every human being in the world is more and more important than ever, because the opportunities to misuse and to use in a good way is there in more than ever. So therefore I have in all my political life emphasized the importance of values, ethical values. And it's still in my, it's my real conviction that it is more important than ever. And I know that this is also an issue in South Korea. You are talking about ethical values, and that is so important.
시간이 다 돼가는데 제일 마지막으로는 굉장히 많은 분들이 질문을 올려주셨는데 전부 다 커버하지는 못할 것 같고요. 마지막으로는 개인적으로 정말 관심 있는 것들 한번 질문 드리고 싶습니다. 그 도덕적 관념 이런 것들 말씀 많이 해주셨는데 개인적으로는 그런 고민들이 좀 많습니다. 뭐냐면 페이크 뉴스 관련된 가짜 뉴스, 특히 가짜 뉴스가 극단적 의견들이 네트워크 통해서 손쉽게 전달되니까 국민들이 분열되고 사회적 합의를 이끌어내기가 힘들다라는 측면이 있습니다. 특히 한국 같은 경우에 유튜브 등으로 대표되는 개인 방송 부분이 매우 활성화돼서 이런 새로운 채널을 통해서 가짜 뉴스가 전파되기도 합니다. 혹시 그 노르웨이에서는 이러한 가짜 뉴스에 대해서 어떻게 대응하고 있는지 굉장히 그 기본적인 도덕적인 이야기를 많이 해주셨으니까 마지막으로 한 말씀 해주시면 좋을 것 같습니다. 네.
Well, I think we have the same challenge in all countries. In Norway, with regard to the traditional media, broadcasting and newspapers, they have established a committee themselves, comprised by experienced editors and also people from the public opinion. And if there is some who mean that the media have given, for instance, an unethical article or fake news, it can be appealed to this committee. And the committee make a decision, like a judgment. And that is playing a role in Norway. Rather recently, the biggest newspaper in Norway was judged by this committee that they made some unethical articles. And it's not good for an editor to get such a judgment. And the reputation of that newspaper was decreased after that judgment. I think it was very important. But as I said, with regard to social media, it is not possible to do it in the same way. We have a legislation that is forbidding something, racism and harassment and so on. That's not allowed by our legislation, and of course, but if something of this is done in the social media, it's so difficult to stop it. Then you have to bring it to the court. And we know that to bring something to the court is a very complex and expensive process. So I think the main means must be to discuss these issues in the schools, in the compulsory schools, where all pupils have to go for some years, and to have a continuously public debate about this. That is the best way, I think, to avoid a bad development in this regard.
Okay. Is there anything you want to say as a closing comment?
Well, just say that I think the subject for this conference is very important. You are talking about human resources. And by the end of the day, many of you are working in business and economics. And that is important, economic values. At the end of the day, human resources are much more important. That's the most important for a positive development of a country. So I congratulate you with the topics of this conference, and wish all of you all the best from a friend in Norway.
네, 박수 쳐주시면 감사드리겠습니다. 예, 알겠습니다. 네.
네, 여러분 두 분께 다시 한번 큰 박수 부탁드리겠습니다.